Good afternoon. We'll try that again, and welcome to the Tompkins County Legislature meeting. Today is Tuesday, August 15th. It is now 5:30. If you could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
No, weird to hear yourself. Okay, we're going to have a roll call of members, please.
Lee Shirtliff. Mr. Shirtliff has asked to be excused for the first portion of the meeting tonight. Mr. Sigler.
Here.
Travis Brooks.
Here.
Randy Brown.
Here.
Amanda Champion.
Here.
Susan Curry.
Here.
Deborah Dawson.
Here.
Rich John.
Here.
Dan Klein.
Here.
Ann Corman.
Here.
Mike Lane.
Here.
Greg Mezzi.
Here.
Veronica Pillar.
Here.
Shauna Black.
Here.
13 members present.
Thank you. I would like to announce that we will have an executive session in accordance with Article 7, Section 105 of the Public Officers Law. Executive session is only appropriate for the discussion of the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation, or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation. And for two matters related to the proposed acquisition, sale, or lease of real property, or the proposed acquisition of securities, or sale or exchange of securities held by such public body, but only when publicity would substantially affect the value thereof. Next, we will move on to the privilege of the floor for our public. And if you are joining us this evening, if you would like to speak on privilege of the floor, I would just ask that you fill out one of the blue forms located at the back table, and please send it up front, please. We have some rules for speaking under privilege of the floor. Number 1, I agree to a 3-minute time limit. Number 2, I agree not to raise my voice. Number 3, I agree not to use lewd, obscene, profane, slanderous, or libelous language, or speak or act in a manner that would tend to incite a breach of the peace. Number 4, I agree not to speak about county personnel matters. Personnel matters include comments about the job performance of named county employees other than elected officials. Number 5, after 3 minutes, I agree to leave the microphone and yield the floor. Transferring time to another person is not permitted. And number 6, I agree that if I cause a disruption and am asked to leave, I will leave the chambers. Our first speaker tonight is Zach Wynn.
Good afternoon. My name is Zach Wynn, and I would like to remark on the large increase in overdose deaths that has been announced by the county. Listening to the police dispatch frequently, I can tell you the overdoses are clustered in 2 different types of places. First, the jungle encampments near Brindley and also behind Lowe's and Walmart. Second, the overdoses frequently occur at various supported living facilities in Ithaca, such as Amishi House, Chartwell House, Lakeview Mental Health Services, and the homeless shelter on State Street. I believe these overdose hotspots at supportive housing are indicative of the primary flaw of the county continuum of care document, specifically, quote, the housing first approach. Putting people in the throes of addiction into housing without treatment and support means they simply overdose and die in an apartment instead of on the street. I encourage members of the legislature to examine the feedback to the city's proposed pilot policy on unsanctioned encampments. I have personally compared the proposed, quote, green zone to a concentration camp for the homeless. In the feedback as part of the upcoming PEDC agenda, contains statements from a person claiming to work with the homeless locally, relating to the population of Ithaca's jungle, believing that the proposed green zone is, quote, like a concentration camp out of World War II. So I'm not the only person who has made that connection. Yesterday saw a 6-agency manhunt for a machete-wielding man in the jungle drug encampments. The suspect remains at large, and it is clear the Ithaca police lack the manpower to address the out-of-control crime in the city. IPD are routinely triaging non-emergency calls, and the reality of the lack of public safety will inevitably filter back to the parents and the wider community. I encourage the legislature to use whatever means are available to you to encourage Ithaca City Hall to act decisively to address this crisis. Also, I add that one of the members of the legislature here came into where I work the other day. I ran into him, and a few hours later, the business I worked at was robbed. Merely feet from where I work, someone came inside and went through everyone's stuff. And this afternoon, the outdoor store on the Commons was flash robbed by a gang of youth. So I don't believe it's going to be tenable for everyday life to continue until someone decides to address what's going on. So please do something. Thank you. I yield the remainder of my time.
Thank you. Next is Ashley Miller.
My name is Ashley Miller, and I'm here representing the Cascadilla Creek Neighborhood Association. And since it's August, many of our members are out of town and couldn't be here. A week ago, I sent you photos of the most noticeable examples of the deterioration that has occurred under the county's ownership of the once beautiful home at 408 North Tioga Street, also known as the Red House. We in the neighborhood have had an excellent view of this deterioration for 4 years, as the Facilities and Infrastructure Committee has discussed plans for the new Consolidated Center for Government, submitting and then inexplicably withdrawing a resolution to sell the Red House, followed by a draft resolution to demolish the Red House, which would have required starting over with the creation of a new state environmental quality review by the county planning office. Through its inaction, the county has caused this house to degenerate to such an extent that it needs to either put money into its maintenance now before winter takes an even greater toll, or sell it and return it to the tax rolls and a useful life in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Nancy Burkak.
Hi, everyone. Nancy Burchak, town of Ulysses, and a member of Historic Ithaca. So I've come before the F&I committee and also the full legislature in past meetings, speaking in support of that striking building that was just mentioned by Ashley, 408 North Tioga, the Red House. Previously, my arguments have linked retaining this building to sustainable green practices, and several other people have done this as well. I've also argued that Tioga Street neighbors need this venerable building. The fabric of their historic neighborhood can ill afford another loss. Ithacans and actually tourists too, walking along Tioga, admire the Red House. You've heard from some of them. Their letters and email tell you that this building is meaningful to them, that it's part of Ithaca's history, that it matters, and that it's a shame that it's so neglected at the current state. From a practical standpoint, now I'm speaking to you as a taxpayer. It appears to me that you, the county, could be throwing away anywhere from $300,000 to $500,000 by allowing this house to deteriorate. Why? So you can tear it down? I hope not. The Red House is still a valuable asset. There is serious interest in this building. Block Power, an established energy technology concern, has for one made that clear, and they have the funds to purchase, rehabilitate, and green this house. And there are others who are interested in 408 as well. Now, 2 of the 3 proposals which have been set in front of you for the purpose of moving forward with the creation of new facilities for the county government call for the sale of 408. The impediment to this approach is indecision and inaction. Don't let inertia hamper this opportunity to secure funds for the county through the sale of the Red House. Your constituents and taxpayers will thank you for it. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Next is Mary White.
Good evening. I'm Mary White. I am also interested in the house on 408 North Tioga. The county owns 4 properties on Tioga Street, none of which they are putting to use or have a viable active plan for doing anything with. When I look at 408, the words shameful and wasteful are what come to my mind. And I really, really dislike seeing it rot. There is no reason for this, no reason why that property cannot be conveyed to private interests who will develop it and do something and bring it back nice. I talk to tourists who walk along the creek all the time. They love this neighborhood because it has trees and old houses with fancy trim on them. We need to keep that house as a community resource. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Susan Holland.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Susan Holland. I work for Historic Ithaca. I'm the director there. And I'm going to repeat what some of my colleagues here have said tonight. But I did want to talk to you about the county budget, the 2024 county budget, and planning for a new center of government. We support monies in the upcoming budget to get this project off the ground and to make plans to move forward on one of the options that County Administrator Holmes recently put forth in a couple meetings. Because the county now owns 3 vacant properties on the 300 and 400 block of North Tioga Street. Again, there should be funds allocated in the 2024 budget to maintain these properties. They're in the downtown core and proper maintenance is required for all property owners. And they should, I guess you should put some special money aside for their upkeep. So in regards to the Red House, all of you have heard there is an interested buyer and there's other interested buyers. But I do know that in all of the options that the county administrator put forward, 2 of those options were to sell the Red House and the third one was to keep it for yourselves. So I guess it won't be going down anytime soon. And the company that we are talking about, they're super innovative. We've been working with them since they got here, and they could really produce a solution-based approach that would be a win-win for everyone. It could be like one of the greatest projects everyone does together. And I'm interested in seeing that happen. So moving this forward to be able to sell the building soon is in everyone's best interest. And for all the reasons I've spoke about today, and you've heard me before, starting to sound like a broken record. We've given it prior meetings. It makes sense environmentally, economically, socially, fiscally, and historically for the county to maintain or sell the properties as you move forward with the ultimate goal of the center of government. And we're here to help and offer our services to y'all, to the county, to the city, and to any new owner of the Red House or any of the other properties. So thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Next is Joanna Green.
Hi. I think I can be really brief. I just wanted to say a big thank you to the county legislature and other entities of county government for sometime last year, several months ago. You all made a proclamation of August 6th as a day of celebrating democracy in Tompkins County. And it is the anniversary of the 1965 signing of the Voting Rights Act. And I wanted to report that we, a number of us working together in a group we call the Your Voice and Your Vote Coalition. We pulled off a really lovely celebration on August 6th. And we started off with a march from the MLK statue on the Commons, not very far over to South Side. And then we spent a couple of hours celebrating, dancing, listening to music, and hearing from various speakers, including Leah Webb. And we heard from the Calvary Baptist Choir. And it was just a great day. And we all ate free Ben and Jerry's ice cream. But in addition to the legislature, like sort of helping us bring visibility to that day, we also got help from Dominic Recchio was really helpful with publicizing, getting our press release out. The Board of Elections came and Steve DeWitt spoke to us, which was really great. And the Tompkins County Public Library is one of our partners that helps us with voter registration and just getting the word out. Also, I should have said that I'm here representing one of the sort of founding partners of the Your Voice and Your Vote Coalition. We're really the Tompkins County Human Rights Commission, of which I'm a member, and the Office of Human Rights. And Dr. Kenneth Clark has been sort of convening our coalition for the last year and some. So just a quick word about the coalition. We are building, what we're trying to do is build a really coherent effort to increase civic engagement in the county, increase voter registration and voter turnout, but also with a focus most powerfully on people who have given up on the system. If we were to actually engage people who are not voters, that is a substantial voting bloc nationally and in the county. And so, and we think it's the key to actually kind of legislation that we need locally and nationally is engaging the people who have been most hurt by the kind of policy violence that we see happening. So some of our partners to date, Office of Human Rights, Rejoice the Vote, the Human Rights Commission, the Alliance of Families for Justice, Ultimate Reentry, URO, the League of Women Voters has been awesome, Dorothy Cotton Institute, Ithaca Housing Collective, the Q. Oh, sorry. Okay. We're trying to build the coalition though.
You're welcome to finish.
Okay. The Cuga Health System has been involved, Groton Public Library, Finger Lakes Independent Center, Southside Community Center, African Women's Initiative, Tompkins Learning Partners, and Open Doors English. And now we're ready to keep building that coalition and have an even greater impact. So thank you.
Great. Thank you. Dominic, do we have anyone here to speak via Zoom? Okay. Thank you. Next, we will move on to municipal officials, and I see that Jorge De Fendini is here from the city of Ithaca. Hello, Jorge.
Hey folks, how we doing? Can
Good.
folks hear me okay? Yeah. Yeah, wide awake now. Just came back from the gym, so I'm a little sleepy. So just some updates about what we have been up to at the city and what we're going to be getting around to. So first things first, obviously we've been having a robust discussion around city manager and that transition. We've been discussing a number of amendments to our city charter to flesh out the new reality of what this government will look like with the city manager model. So just a couple updates over there. It seems like we are moving to adopt a simple majority for appointing or approving the city manager, that candidate that comes before the Common Council. The voting threshold for removing that city manager is still to be determined at future discussions. There was a lot of back and forth into the wee hours of the night at the last Common Council meeting that we discussed this at, and we are down a Common Councilor because Alderperson Haynes Sharp has some personal matters to attend to, but we're hoping to have a conclusion to that conversation in the near future. And I do believe that we are moving forward with discussing the consultants that we have and trying to put the materials out there to attract candidates so that we can have one ready by January. Of further amendments that we discussed, the non-interference clause that we were having a back and forth on seems will not be making its way into the charter. That'll be something that will be relegated for Common Council's own rules of procedure. For those who weren't following, this was a clause that we were considering to reduce the interaction Common Councilors were having with city staff and to have the city manager be the main point person. You know, there are merits to that, but we're wanting to relegate that to the rules of procedures where it seems to be more appropriate to have that type of, those rules and procedures. After that, we went into discussion around Common Council and mayoral salaries. We've yet to make a final vote on this, but it seems the numbers that we landed on were about 17,000 and some change for Common Councilors and about $30,000 a year for the mayor. And if these numbers hold true, I might be able to have just 2 jobs instead of 3 to be on Common Council. We will see. We will see. Tomorrow is the Planning Economic Development Committee meeting where we'll be discussing the draft policy and have a vote to circulate that policy further. At the last Planning Economic Development Committee meeting where this was discussed, it was flagged that there was discussion around the amber zone, around the the question of enforcement, both the language of the word enforcement, but also its practical implementation. I imagine that discussion will continue at the Planning Economic Development Committee meeting. I will be in attendance there as well. Also, at the last common council meeting, we had a vote on a Green New Deal resolution brought forth by our newly appointed Sustainability Director, Rebecca Evans, who has been in that position as an acting director for some time now. And we're going to be partnering with KPMG, I believe is the acronym, for that company. And they're going to be helping us in a lot of Green New Deal initiatives, including our building electrification program, but also trying to help us with flood risk modeling. That's been a concern for a lot of our constituents about the accuracy of what the flood models, the flood maps are looking like. They're going to help us with coming up with those models. And so this will all be free of charge, and we'll have we're doing a sort of a pilot program with them, and we'll have an opportunity to renew the services that they're providing for us if we feel we're satisfied and want to continue that partnership. And then lastly, at the city administration meeting that's coming up at the end of this month, I personally have filed 2 items for discussion and voting for transgender safe haven measures for the city to adopt, similar to our abortion sanctuary measures that Common Council considered last year. That's all I really have to report. I can take some questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Ann Corman?
Yeah, thank you for the report, Jorge, and special shout out. Thanks for looking at the transgender safe haven. And so one question that was asked of me last night at the Trumansburg Village Board meeting, and I was talking about the give grants, and I can ask at public safety. I think we have this Thursday, but it involved the city council. So I don't know if you'll be able to help me with this answer. Part of the give grant is looking at cameras. And so the question given to me was, does the city council have to vote on whether the cameras are going to be installed or not?
That is a good question, and I don't want to mislead folks because I don't feel comfortable saying yes or no for that, but I will touch base with some of my colleagues and the city attorney and see if that's something that we have to have as a common council have jurisdiction over, or if that's something that can just get decided at the county level. I'm not 100% sure, and so I don't want to mislead. I'll follow up with City Attorney Levine and some of my colleagues and get a more clear-cut answer for you.
Okay, I appreciate it. I know we're doing it in conjunction, of course, you know, with the city. I don't know if Rich has an answer to that.
I believe there is an issue if the cameras are put on government buildings. If they're placed on private buildings or private property, then it's not really a factor to my knowledge. But again, the city may have a different opinion. I know that the city has a $70,000 budget line to add to the give grant money that the county received. And the idea was to try to do a camera system in conjunction so that they're efficient and work together.
So I guess I'm still not clear who's going to decide where the cameras go, or it's not city government. If
it's city property, you'd certainly need city approval.
So if it's not, who decides that? The county?
I think the private property owners can put up cameras as they do. I don't know that there's any statute or local law that prevents a private property owner from siting a camera on their property.
Through the give grant.
Well, right, or on their own.
Well, I'm just talking specifically through the give grant.
I think we probably need to not answer that right now and look into it, because I don't want misinformation going out that could potentially be alarming to our constituents. So,
and for my part, I'll follow up with City Attorney Levine and get our best legal answer.
That sounds great. And then Lisa, can we follow up on that as well? Okay, great.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else for questions? Mike Lane?
I too am really glad that you come and talk to us. It means a lot here at the legislature. Even out in Dryden, we're hearing about people's fears about the commons in the West End, particularly because of crime incidents. And we're hearing that the IPD has a lot of vacancies that haven't been filled. I heard on the radio driving down tonight that they are having trouble dispatching people because the police officers they have are overworked, basically. You know, they're expected to be there even more and more time and more overtime and things like that. Now, I don't have any personal knowledge of that, but these are the things I'm hearing. I wondered, what is Common Council doing to help on recruitment? We know there was a lot of talk a couple of years ago, or a couple of months ago, or maybe several months ago, about distrust between council and the and IPD, and that's not a good situation in any city. What's happening to help this group to try to get more people on recruit? Are you paying more money? Do they feel that they're being supported? That's a pretty broad set of questions, but we're actually hearing these things.
No, I appreciate the question. Yeah. And this is not something that's just specific to our law enforcement within the city of Ithaca. We're having these challenges within our public works. We're having these challenges with our TCAT drivers, our TCAT mechanics. We're having these challenges across all of our public sector workers. It's proving to be a challenge to have both competitive wages and benefits with the limited revenue that we're working with. And of course, we don't want to extend a strenuous burden of taxes, increased taxes onto all of our constituents. And so there are a lot of plates that we're trying to juggle simultaneously. But I do know that last year that we decided that we were going to have a Common Council labor liaison to be sitting on all of the negotiations with between the city and our public sector unions. And I know that we recently ratified, recently being this year, ratified a new contract with our public service workers in DPW. And I know it's come to my attention as was announced at a previous Common Council meeting that negotiations are underway between the PBA, fire, and the other public sector workers. And I'm hoping that, and I know that Alderperson McGonigal is the labor liaison, and I do trust for him to have to make sure that we're giving a fair shake to all our workers, and hopefully those type of relationships and having Common Council be a lot more involved in the maintenance of those relationships will help to avoid us being in this sort of feedback loop where we're having trouble recruiting folks. And then when we have folks who do come here, they're overworked and then decide to leave. And then that puts extra stress on everyone else, and then they leave, and then so on and so forth. And so trying to break that feedback loop is something that I think is a top priority for a lot of us on Common Council. And so we're eagerly waiting updates and reports from Alderperson McGonigal and from the city in general about how these labor negotiations are going. And I'm hoping that, and then we also have, of course, new MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, negotiating happening between the city and Cornell University. And I'm hoping if we can get a fairly good deal over there, that we could use some of that revenue to make our wages more competitive for our workers and make it more attractive to work at the city to address these recruitment issues that are being heard across the county.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Jorge? Veronica Pillar?
Yeah, thank you. Hi, Jorge. I know I could have researched this myself by watching your meeting, but I'm a little lost in the weeds, but curious about the updates on the city manager related charter changes. And I know that before the referendum vote, what was it?
The referendum to adopt a city manager model.
Yeah. A lot of people were like roughly comparing that model to what we have here at the county with an elected legislature, but a county administrator. And so as this is shaking out at the city, are you able to summarize like differences and similarities between where it looks like your model's going and what ours is?
Yeah.
And it's okay if the answer is no.
I'll tell you this. At the next point of these updates, once we have arrived at a more concrete plan on how we are adopting a lot of these amendments, is when I'll feel the most comfortable in doing that, because I don't want to say, yeah, then we're, you guys have a removal process that looks like this. And then, next month it's, we decided to do something completely differently. And now we've just put a bunch of misinformation out there. And so I'll hold off on that, but we are looking to a lot of a lot of what you guys have done at the county, but also what other municipalities throughout New York State have done with the city manager model. I know a lot of common councilors have taken it upon themselves to do a lot of research and see how we are comparative to, other municipalities, but also how we have our own distinct, unique issues. Like, for instance, it perhaps doesn't make the most sense to look at, a city with twice our population, twice our revenue stream, and then talk about city manager salaries versus, mayoral salaries. And so I know that wasn't the majority of your question, but in terms of like the distinctions between city manager and county administrator, I'll make sure to have a more in-depth presentation of what that looks like at the next one of these updates.
That's very fair. Thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you, Jorge.
No
We
problem.
appreciate you coming tonight.
Always a pleasure. Take care.
Thank you. Next, it is time for legislator privilege of the floor. Who wants to start this up? Mike Sigler?
Sure. I just wanted to thank certain people. The Gus Isaac birthday party at Lansing in Myers Park was terrific. Want to give thanks to Ross Boyer and our own J.R. Claiborne and Dave Hatfield. They just certain things kind of came together. Honor flight came down from Syracuse. Mark Molinaro sent a flag that had flown over the Capitol and gave that to Gus, and Gus teared up with that. There was a whole presentation. Certain VFWs came in, Groton, Dryden. The Patriot Riders came in and gave Gus like the nicest plaque I think I've ever seen in my life to him. And, it was nice seeing Gus and then seeing his daughter who spoke for a while and talked about him. And then you see his granddaughter, and then you see his great grandchildren, and you literally have 100 years of Lansing history right there, all in the same place, all honoring this man. It was terrific. And I want to thank everybody in Lansing for turning out and really showing their respect for this man. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Mike. Anyone else for privilege? Oh, I'm sorry. Ann Corman had raised her hand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In response and thinking about a lot of our public comment regarding the Red House, I just keep thinking about what happened years ago to the properties that were on that parcel on Sears Street that were let to deteriorate to the point where they needed to be torn down. So that the history of that property there, to me, is very sad. So I hope we can figure out something, to do. And I'm confident we can move forward with something soon, especially before the winter, to help save that property. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. Veronica?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm glad the issue of overdose or opioid overdose deaths came up in public comment. Because I had recently learned that that August 21st, this coming Monday, is National Fentanyl Prevention and Awareness Day, which I wanted to recognize. This is established in remembrance of those lost to illicit fentanyl poisoning and to acknowledge the devastation this drug has brought to hundreds of thousands of affected family members and friends. This is a day of coordinated response from fentanyl awareness organizations and affected families sharing their lived experiences as part of a whole group warning and informing our youth, the public, and the unsuspecting. The National Day is observed on August 21st. Though after that, I learned that this August 31st is International Overdose Awareness Day. And then I learned that May 9th is National Fentanyl Awareness Day, unless it's May 7th. The point is, maybe every day we should be aware of the dangers and harms of opiate and related drugs, and the dangers that folks who use them are in, or folks who don't use them exactly but might encounter them. I know, as folks saw, our whole health department put out a press release about that with a lot more information in depth. But I guess I want to emphasize to go look at that and some of the prevention tools, and emphasize that this is for everybody. Nobody is insulated from the risk of harm from opiates or death from opiates. It might, like, you individually may not be at risk, but like people in your community likely are. You can't assume that you know who is or isn't using opiates, or who is or isn't going to, or who is or isn't gonna seek out some other drug that was laced with something. So I think we really need to normalize these like prevention and treatment measures. One big helpful thing is Narcan, which can, bring someone back from an opiate overdose. It's completely safe to use if the person is not overdosing. If you're hearing my voice, you can get Narcan and you can get it for free. If you have health insurance, you can go to a pharmacy and get it for free. If you don't, you can call 211 and get hooked up to one of our local agencies who can give it to you for free. You can also get fentanyl testing strips and xylazine testing strips, which I only just learned about, also for free. Call 211 for that, or go to the health department. Some other agencies locally have those. Those are strips that you can use to test a drug that you have or someone has to see if fentanyl or xylazine is in it, which can be deadly just once if it's there and you are not expecting it, or don't have a tolerance for it. I have Narcan I keep in my car. I don't have any drug testing strips I carry with me, but I'll work on getting some, and I'd encourage everyone to. Thanks.
Thank you, Veronica. I also want to make our county employees aware that we do have an AED in the back of our building here. One of those was installed in every single one of our county buildings, and we also keep Narcan in there. So if there ever is a cardiac incident, if we suspect that someone has overdosed, I believe we have 2 doses of Narcan. They are saying that some of these drugs that are coming out right now are a bit stronger, and many times you'll require more doses, but hopefully Bangs or one of our law enforcement agencies would arrive at that point. Let's see here, Rich John.
Thank you. Just wanted to give a shout out for the Tompkins County Community Blood Drive and the 2nd annual Emergency Preparedness and Safety Fair that will be held at the shops at Ithaca Mall on Saturday, September 16th, 2023, from 10 o'clock to 2 p.m. This is, as they say, it's the 2nd year they're doing this. I think it's a great thing. For anybody who's interested, please stop by and consider giving blood. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Mike Lane.
Our county renews every year. And it's this time of year that it gets renewed. It's renewed with youth. It's because our primary economic driver in Tompkins County is education. It's Cornell University, it's Ithaca College, it's Tompkins Cortland Community College. If you spread a little further, it's SUNY Cortland. And anybody who was on the roads yesterday probably saw a little extra traffic, a lot of extra traffic. And that's a great thing. And I don't think we take enough time each year to stop and say, welcome back, students. You're here for 4 years, but every year you renew with a new set of young people. If you go to our college in Dryden, or the extension centers, you see not only young people, but also other people who are coming back for new degrees when they're older, or new training when they're older. And that's a really good thing. Cornell University in particular gets a lot of black eyes in this community because it's the big gorilla in our community. But we are so lucky to have a world-class institution like that here, providing jobs, providing education, providing culture, providing donations and volunteers for our how many do we have? How many not-for-profits do we have in this community? More than any place else.
What's that?
So I don't doubt that for a minute. Well, I'm not a Cornellian. I'm not from Ithaca College. I did take one course at TC3. But I try to understand what it does for us and try to, when we have disagreements with Cornell or Ithaca College or any of them, whether it's anything from how much they should pay the city of Ithaca for fire and police to how much they should pay for recycling and solid waste. We have those disagreements. They're healthy and they're not fun. But in the whole scheme of things, we're pretty lucky. Thanks.
Mike? Anyone else like to add comment today? Okay. Thank you. I will move on to a very quick chair's appointment. I would like to appoint to the Workforce Development Board member Leon Holden for a business representative, and that term expires June 30th, 2024. And I do have a very short chair's report. Thank you, Mike, for mentioning our students. I actually totally forgot that they were coming, but I noticed the long caravan of cars that were going on Trip Hammer, driving about 5 miles per hour. And I'm sure I'll be getting some phone calls from our Forest Home neighbors, as many of those cars were parked right in front of their driveways. And I would encourage locals to stay away from Target and Wegmans. I made the mistake of going to Target today. It was not a great idea. I also want to bring up the topic. I know we're going to get going on our updates for the budget, capital, and personnel, but I want to acknowledge the slate of upcoming expanded budget committee meetings that we will have in September. I want to thank our committee chair, Deborah Dawson, as well as our staff and administration and our department heads for their work in putting together this ever-changing budget. I know that there have been weekends upon weekends upon weekends where many of the people in this room are here at work. And so please know that your work, your attention to detail does not go unnoticed. And we thank you for all that you do. We know this is just essentially the beginning of the long stretch of meetings that we will be spending together over the next few months. I also want to thank Holly Mosier for helping us in the county attorney's office. And stepping in and offering her assistance, as well as Erin Murphy. We appreciate your willingness to serve in your role, and we want to just thank you for all of your hard work. Just a reminder that we are going to have our annual county employee picnic next week. Word has it there will be some, that we are going to have some teams for, what is that sport? I mean, I call it a sport. Some cornhole. Word has it that we have a very competitive clerks team that will be entering this year. So my support goes behind our friends in the clerk's office. I would encourage everyone, if you're thinking of going, make sure to RSVP so that we have some numbers. I also want to urge legislators, departments, and staff to continue to participate in our strategic operations planning survey. I have received some questions about whether this is anonymous for staff. And I can share that all of the survey responses are in fact anonymous. Our consultant is looking at every response and preparing an overview for us to consider before our next steps. I would also ask that anyone, including those taking the community survey or participating in focus groups or interviews, please be honest. This is your chance to provide feedback and for us to look at things differently. We want to hear from you. We don't want your answers to be guarded. This is really a chance for us to hear the issues that are coming up in the county, your concerns as an employee, your concerns as someone that lives in our community, and for us to really create some change here. Thank you to everyone that has participated so far. And that is my report. Next, we will move on to our report by County Administrator Lisa Holmes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have 3 brief updates and then a brief presentation. So for my updates, first, I wanted to say I'm pleased to announce that after a thorough search process, I've extended an offer to Charlene Holmes for the Chief Equity Diversity Officer position. She's accepted, and she's going to be joining us starting September 5th. Third time's a charm. Charlene has worked as the CEO and president of a DEI consulting firm called Emana Barrena since 2019. She's also worked as the associate director of development of the YWCA of Northeastern New York and the director of diversity engagement at Elms College. She brings expertise in the diversity, equity, inclusion framework development and execution realm. She has great people skills and definitely a passion for the work. She is relocating here from the Albany area, and she's secured housing just over the county line in Schuyler County. I'd previously informed the legislature via email that I'm granting a residency waiver for this candidate. She's a county administrator's appointment, but she is a public officer. And given the previous recruitment issues that we've had related to housing, I thought this was certainly worthy of a waiver. I have not received any concerns about this, but I just wanted to state for the record here that I've granted a residency waiver, and if people have concerns, please let me know. My second update is enhanced security measures took effect yesterday at the Human Services Building. We've been discussing those for many, many months, including the installation of a weapons detection screening device and armed security officer. Everyone who enters through the front of the building now must pass through the weapons detection system, and visitor items, including any prohibited items, can now be placed in secured lockers outside of the building during regular business hours. There were a number of steps that we had to take to implement this system over several months, and it included staff from many departments, including social services, probation and youth, facilities, Department of Emergency Response, and county administration. This was a really important and necessary step to provide increased security for our visitors, clients, and staff at the Human Services Building. And I just want to express my appreciation of the legislature's support for this step. My third update is related to the 2024 budget. Norma, Samantha, and I have just completed 3 weeks straight of meetings with departments and agencies on their 2024 budget requests, and we'll now be putting everything together for the recommended budget. I wanted to bring something to folks' attention that we discovered yesterday. At the time of the April budget retreat, we were provided with a figure of 47 million for the 2022 actual sales tax revenues. And we used that figure in our projections for 2024, projecting a very slight conservative increase on that 1% to 47.5 million for our 2024 projected revenues. Yesterday, we detected that this figure was in error. We've now confirmed the correct amount for those 2022 actual revenues should have been 44.7 million. This is a $2.3 million difference that we'll now be factoring into our 2024 budget. I made the Budget, Capital, and Personnel Committee aware of this yesterday at yesterday's meeting. I thought it was significant enough to make the legislature aware of it as well. I believe this occurred as a result of some of the staffing transitions earlier in the year in finance, and I really appreciate Lori's ability to provide us with the confirmation of the correct information right away. So that's the good news, that we detected this and we can still address it. The bad news is that error was not in our favor, but we will be working to address them. And those were my updates. I now have a brief presentation to go over on the capital program, but if anyone has any questions on anything I just went over, I'd be happy to address them before we jump in.
And Corman?
I don't know if this is a question for you or Lori, but can the next error be in our favor that you find in the?
I would like
Just-
that very much.
Okay, thank you.
And Lori did share some good news about our investments yesterday, so that does help us.
Any other questions for Lisa on the recent information? Okay.
Okay. So I think Norma is going to help me with the screen sharing and this presentation. It's about 10 slides. And it is a high-level overview of the 2024 capital budget and current and future debt service. That was a teaser to get you interested. There we go. Okay. So before we jump in, I'm not going to be going into detail about any of the capital projects themselves, as they are all going to be going to program committees over the next month. But the purpose of this is to provide an overview of the current projects that we're paying debt service on, the proposed projects in the 2024 capital plan, and the projected debt service over the next 25 years, considering some of the major projects that we're considering taking on. So, slide. So this slide is a summary of the projects within the county's current debt service portfolio. They are, I think, general obligation bonds and bans for various projects from 2012 to present. Included on the right-hand side are, so included on the left-hand side are those that are, we're paying debt service on. On the right-hand side are projects currently bonded with our enterprise units, the Airport and Recycling Materials Management Center. And it's assumed that those projects on the right and the debt service associated with those projects will be financed through fees generated through those enterprise units. So that's, and then this is a summary of projects that are existing, they're currently underway, or new projects that are on the 5-year capital plan, and again are going to be covered in greater detail at program committees this month. You can see on that monitor down at the down here in a little more, there's some that are highlighted in red, and those are projects that are currently under consideration. The Center of Government building has been included in our capital plan. Public safety, new construction has not. Green facilities phase 2 has not. Broadband expansion has not, and the CDL testing site. But the others are currently in our capital plan for 2024 5-year capital plan. And these are existing and new projects on the 5-year capital plan for the Airport Enterprise Fund. Those are projects that are either currently underway or planned at the airport. And then the airport RFSRE building is one that is currently under consideration due to the size of that project. So taken together, and this is where it gets interesting and where we can start to project out. We have here looking at 2024 all the way through 2050, the profile of our future debt service, and this is using our the new budget software. And this is really, we can go into more detail after we get out of the slideshow if people have questions, but each little band of color represents a project. And when we get into the database, you can hover over and see exactly what projects there are. So this chart shows all of the expenses by year in the capital plan without regard to how each project is funded. So some of these projects are paid with using ARPA. Some may have state or federal funding attached to them, but this is the total cost, if you will, of all of the projects. And I think we can go to the next one, Norma. This is a look at the profile of projects that we are definitely on the hook for in terms of our indebtedness. These are the projects that we have that have a fixed contribution in debt service that we cannot adjust. And those constitute the majority of our capital projects. There are some projects in our capital program where we have the discretion to adjust our annual contribution. For instance, how much we pay in toward our road maintenance program, facilities maintenance, IT infrastructure, our green fleet program. But then there are others that we are obligated to pay. And that this shows that those obligations. So for instance, in 2024, it's about 6 million that we are definitely, they're fixed. But the next slide here is looks at our future debt service that will be financed through the tax levy. So you can see in the previous slide in 2024, we had 6 million in fixed costs. We have, I think it's 7.3 million in 2024 total. So, and that's generally around what we have been contributing for capital. In our 2023 budget, we also contributed 7.38 million toward capital or toward the debt service. So in this projection and in the past projections, we have included a projected cost for the debt service to include both a center of government building as well as a public safety building, because I know that this has been something that we have been grappling with. They're both large projects. They're both something that they're both needs that have been identified. And can we afford to pay for both? And if so, when and what will it look like? So in this profile, you can see the light blue bars kind of toward the top going out through, yeah, thank you, Norma, through to 2050. Those are the represent payments on bonds for an estimated payment for a center of government building, and that's about $2.9 million a year in debt service. The dark blue bars, which start around 2029, are debt service on a public safety building, and that's about 7 million per year. Now, you would ask why the center of government building doesn't start until 2030 or so, 2031. That's because we have, in the next slide we can show, there are some projected use of fund balance to pay for capital projects through 2030. And on these, you can see the dark blue bars across the top indicate the use of fund balance toward the center of government through 2030. So again, if people have questions or want to get into some more detail about any of these, we can get out of the PowerPoint and into the budget system itself and look at some of those numbers in greater detail. So I think we have one more slide. So, excuse me, I titled this one Considerations, Threats, and Opportunities. The first is an opportunity. We are now currently considering a reserve policy. It's been in discussion, I believe, and with budget, capital, and personnel. We do have the ability to set general funds aside for designated projects. It's something that when we're looking at projects of this size and nature, and the available fund balance that we have, it would be a very good idea to designate what we might, what we project we would want to be spending, because it is going to be very tight in the capital program over the first few years of taking on debt service and two major projects. We currently have 1.2 million in reserve for capital reserve, and we've been making annual contributions of $260,000 toward capital reserve. The next is I would call it a threat, the continued need to support the airport operating budget and debt service on the terminal project while the airport recovers. Again, we are we have in the 2024 budget, and presumably we will need to continue into 2025, at least some level of support for the airport as air service recovers. It's just a question of how much, and can we get some air service back and get the airport back on its feet and able to balance its budget and its debt service. And then some of the assumptions that we made that would be open to further discussion with the legislature. But in putting these projections together would be financing on the debt service using 4.5%. Again, that is subject to change with the changing economy. With the center of government building, we were projecting a total cost of $35 million with $9 million use of fund balance. The public safety building, we projected a total cost of $50 million. Again, without further details about the costs of these projects, we just needed to put something in for conversation's sake here, but $50 million for public safety. We know that Green Facilities Phase 2, we've received some projections from our facilities director about continuing on with the Green Facilities project, and those prices increased significantly. The Phase 1 project, which was originally slated to be 7 million, was 14 million. So if we want to continue with Phase 2, it's going to be 15.5 million. That was not included in these projections, and I think there's going to have to be some discussion about that, whether we can afford that, and if so, when. The airport, our SRE building, was not included in this, and we've been able to defer that project with the FAA. I think we're going to be discussing it some more at F&I. And then we have a project that is not yet well defined, but in terms of broadband expansion, we are about to be considering an RFP for broadband providers to assist with underserved areas and applying for grant funding for that. But we know that there may be some amount of county contribution there. So those caveats apply to everything that we're talking about. I just wanted to make those clear. So given that, I'd be happy to field questions if people have them. Or we could go into any more detail if people would like, or bring it back to committee.
Thank you, Lisa and Norma and Bridget. We appreciate the presentation. Ann Corman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Lisa, if you went, or Norma, who's ever controlling, go back a couple of slides to some of those. Keep going back. Keep going back. Say it right there. Yep. Yeah, right there. So when it's higher, the next, 8 to 10 years, and then it gradually drops. I think I know what that is, but I just wanted to, confirm that. we could have other projects past that. So it doesn't mean for sure that we're looking at, oh, then it's going to go down lower, but that's just to finance the projects that we have slated right now is why we have those high areas. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is our current debt load. And with these two major projects included, we will still continue to have to build bridges, pave roads, maintain our buildings. There are within those capital programs, we do have discretion about, again, some discretion about how much we contribute to our roads and facilities, but it will be tight.
And just one last question is, I don't recall seeing graphics like this before. Is this because of the new software, new budgeting software? This is great. It's really helpful. Thank you.
I'll send out the link. I have all of these stuff on a page.
Okay, we'll try not to, we won't be able to actually change anything, right? We'll be locked out. Good, that's best. Thank you.
Okay, I have 4 hands up right now. Randy Brown, Deb Dawson, Mike Sigler, and Greg Muzzy.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation, Lisa, and Nora for putting this together. It's very helpful. Looking at the various scenarios, and looks like the software, although it probably wasn't easy to put those numbers in necessarily, presents good information. I'm a little surprised at the cost of the $50 million for the jail. I was hoping that it's not going to be that. But it's good to have this information to plan for. So thank you.
Thank you. And it may not be that. I mean, maybe we overestimated. I don't know.
Deb Dawson.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Lisa. I know that this was a lot of work. A couple of things. I was a little surprised to hear that the green facilities project wasn't included, because I thought that sometime in the past year, we had actually allocated more funding towards green facilities, but was that only for phase 1 and not phase 2?
That's correct. We had to allocate an additional 7 million for phase 1 because of the cost, the inflated cost of phase 1. And so the scope of work changed somewhat to try to accommodate to increase and put more in the scope of work, but it was still $14 million for phase 1 with additional phases in the future.
So which phase is the ground source heating assigned to?
I'd asked Arel to join us for this portion of the meeting. I believe he's with us via Zoom. Arel, can you answer that question?
Okay, so the question is geothermal. So phase 1 does include geothermal at the Public Works facility.
Right.
Phase 2 had geothermal at the Health Department Emergency Response Center and Human Services Building. So that was phase 2 that in this presentation would not be funded.
Well, my concern is if we move forward with the center of government downtown, I thought that part of the package for that was geothermal for the entire downtown campus. What happens with that?
So the funding for the center of government does not fund the district geothermal. That would be outside of the at least center of government. The green facilities would fund a portion of the geothermal for the downtown, but not the district geothermal, which would be basically picking up all the buildings on the downtown block. And so I know that Terry Carroll has been looking at, grant opportunities to allow that to happen. But for the center of government, we would install systems in the building that could tie into geothermal, whether it happened concurrently or in the near future after the building is constructed.
So the geothermal, even for the new center of government, isn't included in the 35 million.
Correct.
And then I guess my last question is the 35 million seems a little low. I'm trying to recall what the numbers were when we last looked at this.
It was it was 20 some million. So yeah, this number has been increased.
Okay.
And without really first determining which departments and the total square footage. So there's a range in square footage. And so this number, I think, is conservative. You know, my feeling is that once a decision is made, first to move forward with the project, but then also which departments would be included in the new building, we can start schematic design and come back with a more solid estimate. So both this one and the public safety building are pretty conceptual numbers. I think we can do better.
Okay, thank you.
Mike Ziegler.
Wondering about the darker blue, that's the public safety building. I thought you had said it was like $7 million service a year. So I'm confused by the 7 million or the 3 million. Like, what would the debt service be yearly? So, or were we talking like an aggregate between the two projects? That got us to 7 million, but that didn't seem to work out either.
7 million is the actual tax levy. That's for all projects.
Oh, gotcha.
2024. Is that what you mean?
That must be what it is then. Okay. Okay.
Greg Mezzi.
Thanks. And I don't know if we have limitations because of what's loaded into our budget system, but do you have this that you can go back and see like the last 10 years of what the impact on the levy, like the debt service impact on the levy was, and sort of what's brought us here, why we're here, and then sort of where we're going? Is that possible? Could you just say could you just even just give us a number? It doesn't need to be in a chart.
Totals?
Yeah, totals is totally fine. That would be just curious from me, my own curiosity to look at sort of how we've ramped up or what the past has been as well leading into this.
Lisa.
I also just wanted to say that this is really, in essence, a modeling exercise. This is not, this is not a recommendation or a plan. This is really just to illustrate some different options about financing and what they would look like if we wanted to push things out, if we wanted to make restrictions, if we wanted to include certain items such as the phase 2 of the green facilities and play with this. This is available to us now. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Any other questions? Mike Lane.
Yeah, I like this. I know you said it's probably interactive in another form, but even a color key would be helpful for people that don't have the interactive capability, or for the public, that kind of thing. And I would just mention, and I guess I got thinking about it because Dan gave us that 10-year discussion about these chambers. It was 10 years ago that we had a capital projects planning committee. And it was a really good committee. And we looked at all of these issues that we're talking about, that you're talking about right now, because we were ramping up again on capital projects at that point. We'd had a hiatus after the building the library and some other things. I'm wondering if it might be a good idea to be considering whether we should have a committee like that. The lasting thing that committee recommended, and I still think it was an excellent thing, was that every year we would add on the levy. Was it half a point or a quarter of a point? Half a point.
Half a point, yep.
And that would go toward capital. And it has worked really well. It's given us cash to put toward projects sometimes when we didn't have to always bond all of it. And I think 1 or 2 years we cut it back to a quarter of a point. but it's still been a really smart budgeting move that this county has had.
Thank you. Anyone else for comment or question?
Just show. So look at the screen now, this is the actual budget software itself. And it does have keys that show you that are then clickable in to show you how those projects, how each project behaves and, the future debt service payments and such. So I just wanted you to be aware that that function is built into this software.
And to Ann's point, if I could, excuse me, but that yes, we always see these dips and when the cost will be there, but we never actually get there because of the new projects.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much, Lisa. Next, we have the county attorney report with Deputy County Attorney Holly Mosher.
Good evening. I have nothing to report.
Okay.
Could you elaborate on that?
Also, legislators, we did receive an email that came out of the county attorney's office today on current litigation. So if you have any questions, you can refer those to Aaron or Holly. So. Next, are there any questions for Holly? Okay.
And I wanted to say, Holly, thanks for stepping in to help, handle, of course, things that needed to be handled recently.
No problem.
Thank you. Next is Director of Finance, Lori Scarrett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a couple updates and a quick presentation. Update number one is we are continuing to work on our year-end annual audit from 2022, still working on the leases. I'm hoping to wrap that up soon. Update number two, yesterday I gave a presentation of a draft cash management and investment policy at Budget Capital Personnel Committee. We have some revisions and that will be going to GO at their next committee as well. And my presentation is a second quarter 2023 sales tax report, which I have up on the screen for you. Couple of highlights to go over that across New York State, sales tax went up 3% in the second quarter. And outside of New York City, it was 2.3%. Albany County had the biggest decline of 6.1%, and Sullivan County had the strongest growth at 28.3%. Tompkins County overall sales tax increased by 4.01%, and our neighboring counties, Cayuga had a decline of 1.6%, Cortland 0.2%, Tioga increased by 3.7%, Schuyler 7%, and Seneca had a decrease of minus 1.5%. This screen shows the total sales tax for the second quarter, showing 4% increase or $762,000 over this time last year. This screen shows the sales tax distribution changes. So the towns and villages saw an increase of 6.2% or $266,000. City of Ithaca had a 1.44% increase or $58,000. And the county's share increased 4.1% or $437,000. This shows year to date, so both first quarter and second quarter combined for total sales tax, and it shows 3.39% if we take both quarters together, or a $1.2 million increase over last year. And this screen shows the comparable year to date, first and second quarter combined for towns, villages was up 5.12% or $434,000. City of Ithaca, 1.33%, $104,000. And the county share was 3.47% increase or $728,000. This screen just shows the last 3 years of January through June for the county share of sales tax. You can see we had 3 months that dipped below the budget. The budget is that I think it's like a teal color going across at about the $3,500,000 mark. So we were below budget in February, April, and May of this year. And so far, year to date through June, we are 2.23% above budget for the first 6 months, or 475,000 above where we would be for the budget. And this last screen is new from yesterday, based on some feedback I received at the BCP committee. There was a request to add more years and to show all 12 months. So that is what I have here. So this is an addition to what was presented yesterday. Just going back, showing 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23. Keep in mind, 23 is only showing the first 6 months of the year. Total budgeted amount was 42,557,093. And that's it for my presentation. I'm open to any questions that anyone has.
Thank you, Lori. The spreadsheets are great, and I am glad that you're going back many years. I think Rich John, for probably 2 years straight, has asked for that. So I'm glad Lori's listening.
We had a good discussion at BCP on that.
That's great. Mike Lane?
Yes, at BCP, you mentioned about the city and towns and villages, and how are they doing?
So that was on these screens that you're referring to? The second?
It's pretty small. It's
Oh, I'm
hard to read.
sorry. Okay, so for the second quarter, the towns and villages increased 6.27%, or 266,000 over the second quarter last year. The city of Ithaca increased 1.44%, or $58,000 over last year. And the county's share was 4.1, or 437 increase, just for the second quarter.
Thank you. Maybe I wasn't following that part of it.
Any other questions? Dan Klein?
Can you send this to us?
I actually sent it to you minutes before I walked over here today, so it's in your email box.
Thank you.
Greg Mezzi?
Yeah, thanks. This is super helpful. Could you go to your last slide? I think it's slide 8, if my poor eyesight with no glasses can see. Yeah. So one of the things that I've always struggled with, because of how we budget with just a total number, we really can't tell how we're pacing. And is there a way to look at that at all, where we are in comparison to where we should be? Because we just sort of split our budget number by 12 months because we're not budgeting by month. So are we to see where we are on track, or, you know, to budget or to last year? Did I miss that?
I think I had that on a note on this screen here. So this one only shows January through June, but the data's on the note.
Okay.
Where it says, the first comment says total year to date is 2.23% above budget for the first 6 months.
Perfect. Okay. Thanks. So it's just in the notes. Thank you.
Randy Brown?
Thanks, Lori. Yeah, this is very helpful. I think our budget for this year is 40,500,000. Is that, I think that's correct. It looks like we might come in someplace around 42. So if that's the 4% continues, the budget for that you've got working right now, Lisa, you talked earlier about a change that had to be made. So what is your current budget for 2024 planned for sales tax?
We haven't factored that in yet, but if we were to go with the original, the original method, it was taking 1%, adding 1% to the 2022 actuals, which would be somewhere around 45 million. That was where we started in April, and usually by the time we're around to putting together the recommended budget, we have another quarter of sales tax experience, and we can see if we could expand upon that anymore, or if we should stay with the conservative route and look at economic indicators, et cetera. So I'm still playing with some of the numbers.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you very much, Laura. Oh, sorry, Deb.
That's okay. Thank you, Lori, for this presentation, and thank you for making a quick change to honor the comments you got yesterday. I just want to warn everybody not to be super exuberant about what our end of year sales tax figures may look like. I just want to remind everyone that student loan repayments, which have been held in abeyance since the pandemic, will resume October 1st. And there is widespread concern that that will have some substantial impact on people's spending patterns and buying power. So we need to keep that in mind.
Thanks, Deb. Always the bearer of bad news.
I am a ray of sunshine.
Randy Brown.
And I'll offer a silver lining. So the one of the things you presented yesterday, Lori, was the investment income that we're going to receive this year. In our budget for this year, I think it's $100,000 investment income. And we're going to, looks like we could reach 3 million or more in sales in investment income this year. So it's $2.9 million, which will make up your 2 point whatever. And I think that if we, I'm not sure what your budget plan is for next year, but and I'm sure Deb could feed in this, but I've been reading that by the end of next year, if the interest rate could go as low as 4.25, who knows what's going to happen, but I think that our investments for next year should yield well as well. So
Thank you, Randy. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you all. Next, are there any resolutions to be added to or withdrawn from the agenda? Okay, we're going to move on to consent agenda and resolutions and appointments to be voted on as a group unless any member of the legislature requests that a resolution or appointment be instead included separately and individually as part of the business of standing or special committees. Budget, Capital, and Personnel Committee, Resolution A, authorization for public hearing, Tompkins Cortland Community College operating budget 2023 through 2024. ID 11830. Resolution B, establishing county equalization rates, ID 11788. Resolution C, adoption of regular and supplemental reports of footings and assessment rules, ID 11785. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Amanda Champion, seconded by Veronica Pillar. And we're going to do a roll call tonight.
Mike Sigler,
Yes.
Travis Brooks,
Yes.
Randy Brown,
yes.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Susan Curry,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Greg Mezzi,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
13 ayes.
Thank you. Next, we're going to move to standing and special committees. Community Recovery Fund Advisory Committee, Dan Klein, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The committee met last Monday, August 7th, and it was our first meeting in 3 months. We had originally, at the beginning of the year, said we would meet quarterly. We had a few extra meetings at the beginning of the year, but now we're back on seems like we're back on our quarterly schedule. And it was a relatively quick, relatively easy meeting. There was no big issues. We took care of some minor tweaks for several organizations to help make their grant process easier. They'd made some small changes and we just had to make sure that was okay with everybody, and it was. I'd say the most significant thing we did was to hear about only one project so far that has returned the money, has said that they're not going to do their project as originally applied for. And the amount returned is only $6,000. So the committee discussed it and we decided not to do anything with that $6,000 at this time. We're just going to hold on to it, see what happens over the next few months and make a decision later on how to use that money. Our next meeting is November 7th, November 6th, unless something major comes up between now and then. That's my report.
Thank you, Dan. Any questions or comments for Dan Klein? Okay, thank you. Next is Budget, Capital, and Personnel Committee, Deborah Dawson, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We met yesterday and our Finance Director, Lori Scarrett, was the star of our show. She gave us a sales tax report. We began discussing our cash management and investment policy. That will go through GO and BCP with a resolution probably next month. And she also gave us a crackerjack investment report. She broke down our investments by depository institutions, type of investment, interest rate, return. I commend that to your attention. Anyone on the ledge or listening to this meeting can access that on our YouTube channel. Lori's report starts at around 48 or 49 minutes. And I also have a resolution, Resolution D, extension of additional 1% sales tax for 2 years, increasing taxes on sales and uses of tangible personal property and of certain services, and on occupancy of hotel rooms and amusement charges pursuant to Article 29 of the tax law of the state of New York, in order to extend the effective date through November 30th, 2025. And that is ID number 11839, and I move that.
Seconded by Mike Lane.
This is our standard resolution to continue our sales tax at the county's piece of our sales tax at the current level. And I did not name this thing. This came to us from Albany, and yeah, I wouldn't have called it that, but there you go.
I think another tidbit of information is that we have been asked not to make any changes, because if we do make changes, they could deny it and we won't be able to do the extension. So with
Yes,
that, with that said, any comments or questions about the resolution?
Don't you dare.
Okay. Let's do a roll call vote, please.
Mike Sigler,
Yes.
Travis Brooks.
Yes.
Randy Brown,
Yes.
Amanda Champion.
Yes.
Susan Curry,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Greg Mezzi,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Shauna Black.
Yes.
13 ayes, motion passes.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for Deborah Dawson or comments? Great. Thank you, Deborah. Next is Workforce Diversity and Inclusion Committee, Veronica Pillar, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. WDIC will be meeting tomorrow, Wednesday, the 16th from 3 to 5 p.m. Agenda's up online. We're going to be discussing some upcoming Heritage Months, doing a discussion but no action about auditing and improving accessibility, generally speaking, at the county. And we've also got, we'll be giving some updates and doing some work on the Leslyn McBean Claiborne Strength and Diversity Award and recognitions for county employees who live out any of our values especially well, those being integrity, equity, accountability, and respect. If you go to the county website, oh my gosh, tompkinscounty.ny.gov/workforce/DI/committee. You will find links to these things and forms to nominate folks if you want to jump the gun, but we'll be publicizing that more thoroughly after tomorrow's meeting.
Thank you. Ann Corman.
Thanks. I just wanted to add that there was some discussion last time in the committee, just making sure that, the award was about people who are going above and beyond. So I think that was important to say, because we hope and expect that everybody carries out the values for in the county.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for Veronica? Okay, thank you, Veronica. Next is the Public Safety Committee, Rich John, Chair.
Thank you, Shauna. The Public Safety Committee will be meeting this Thursday, August 17th at 3 o'clock here in Chambers. We're going to have a report from a representative from Suicide Prevention and Crisis Services on the 988 system, which has been in operation for just over a year now. And we're going to hopefully hear a bit about how it's working. And I've actually heard good things, but we'll get it in detail. We're also going to have some presentations from county administration on the backup 911 center and some stuff from the Community Justice Center. And the only other thing I'd report is that our jail numbers have gone down a little bit. Today we're at 59 with 2 board outs. So we were as high as 70 and I think even more than that. So this is pretty good news. Not sure why, but I'll give you good news today.
Good. Any questions or comments for Rich John? Okay, thanks, Rich. Next, we have Health and Human Services Committee, Dan Klein, Chair.
Thank you. The committee will be meeting next Monday, August 21st at 2:00. We were supposed to have a presentation about childcare, but that presenter canceled on us, so that presentation is not going to happen. The big item will be the presentation or the recommendation for the opioid task force projects to be funded. The total is about $722,000 being recommended to go to 8 different projects in the county. The range of those projects is something like $8,000 to $160,000, somewhere in that range. And this is something we've been talking about for a long time, waiting for a long time. So it'll be nice to get this closer to completion. That's my report.
Great. Thank you, Dan. Any questions for Dan Klein? Mike Sigler?
That list of projects public, is that? where can I
Yes,
find that?
it is it's in the agenda packet for Health and Human Services, and I'm not sure if it exists anywhere else. I can't be sure.
I also want to thank Travis Brooks for chairing that task force and Randy Brown for being part of the task force. It was definitely a labor of love, and we had a lot of meetings very early in the morning. And both of you had incredible insight. So thank you for doing that. I think at the end, the spreadsheet is right where I would have assumed that the money would have gone out the door too. So I think we're going to have some really great options, and I'm glad to see that it's, $700,000. You can really make a mark and hopefully reduce some of the overdose activity that we're seeing in our community. Any questions for Dan Klein? Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Next, we have Housing and Economic Development Committee, Greg Mezzi, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We last met on Wednesday, August the 2nd. We had a efficient and crisp meeting coming in just under an hour. We did have 2 updates. We had a Q2 tourism program update from our planning department. And we also had a broadband update from the consultants that we work with, where they presented an option that we were asked to consider by members of the legislature, other municipal partners in the community, looking at a countywide broadband option. That was an introduction. The price tag on that type of a project was somewhere between 95 and 105 million. So that will likely remain an option, but not one that probably will advance much further than the presentation we got, unless it's obviously the will of the legislature to do that. We will have a more comprehensive presentation of the final report from our broadband consultants at our September 6th meeting. And that'll be at 3 p.m. Again on September 6th. So that's all I have to report for today.
Great. Thank you, Greg. Any questions for Greg Mezzi? Okay, thank you. Next, we have the Facilities and Infrastructure Committee, Mike Lane, Chair.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Our next meeting will be this coming Thursday morning at 9 a.m. That's the August 17th. We've got a real heavy agenda. And so I'm warning my committee people that we might go over, but we're going to be talking, we expect to hear from the public on a couple of issues. We're going to be talking about the Forest Home intersection. We're going to be talking about the downtown facilities issues, including a member filed resolution about whether we should proceed with the and authorize the center of government. We'll be talking about the Key Bank building. And remember, Key Bank is or is about to be vacated. Has it been vacated yet?
Yes.
It has been vacated. Okay, so this is timely. What do we do? We'll be hearing from the airport, of course, and administration is going to have us look at the PAR forms, which are the forms with respect to our capital projects that have to do with our committee. So those are some of the things we're going to be doing, and we're glad to have you all come in. And I think we're going to probably start planning how we're going to be working with the Public Safety Committee about reviewing its report and the supplemental report as to that capital project and how it might go forward.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions for Mike Lane? Okay. Rich John?
Actually, I saw there was a resolution in our red folder.
That's going to be for executive session.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Great.
Got it.
Okay. Any other questions for Mike Lane? Okay. Next, we have the Government Operations Committee, Amanda Champion Chair.
Thank you very much. The BEST committee met on August 3rd, and we had a very full agenda as well. We discussed numerous of the things that are on tonight's agenda. Dominic Recchio also gave us a really thorough and detailed report about our website and the things that are problematic. There was some really great data about how it's being used, what's lacking from our website, and we're going to need to decide at some point in the near future how we want to handle that. If we want to put some more money into updating and upgrading so that our public and our employees and everyone has better access and can use the resources that are on there. So if you're interested in that, definitely go back and watch the presentation. We talked a little bit about a few updates in our rules of the legislature. We are going to continue talking about that. We had some good questions, and I think we'll have a little bit more conversation about any small updates on that. And we also talked about, again, the travel and training funding for legislators, about the situation that we're in this year, and then how we want to go forward with that next year. We came to the idea that each legislator next year would have $1,500 and the chair should have $4,000. So that will be coming to us as an OTR in the budget process via our clerk's office. So we'll have time to discuss that, and everyone can weigh in on if you think that that's the right amount or not. But that was just the number we came to at the committee. So we will meet again at the beginning of September. I can answer any questions, and then I have 2 resolutions.
Okay. Any questions for Amanda Champion? Thank you.
Okay, so the first resolution E, to install new monitors for digitally viewing content in the legislature chambers, ID 11819. I'll move that.
Can I have a seconder? Rich John?
Yeah, and we've had extensive discussion about this. I think if there are further questions, Dominic could answer them. Just very briefly to reiterate, the technology in this room is fading quickly, and we need to put in some new features that will make everything more accessible and upgrade to modern digital products. So yeah, questions or comments, I'm sure we can answer them.
Sure. Mike Lane?
Yeah, I voted against this in committee. Our historic chambers mean something. And I think that not only us, but when people come and visit us, I think they're very proud of it, including this desk that we sit at, that we built for $110,000, by the way, as Dan mentioned before. these screens we have and the projectors have worked fine for the last 10 years. And I understand that folks would really like to see an update. But it's pretty hard to have screens unless they're mounted on the wall, or as is proposed here by our communications department, it's that they'll be sitting down in the pit here, two of them. Those will not be able to be seen by people sitting at the end once we get rid of that large screen that's here on loan. And I asked at the committee, how would the new legislators that are going to be elected in the next term, because we're going to 16, is what this board approved. How will they be able to see that? And I was told that there'd be a screen on the back, and they may have to crane their necks around to look at it. I don't think that's a great thing. So there would be, as I understand it, 5 of these screens in here. I mentioned that I thought it would make it look like a sports bar. I'm sorry if people find that offensive, but I do. I don't think historic chambers like this should be overpowered. The architecture should be overpowered by glitz.
Thank you, Mike. Ann Corman and Greg Muzzy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I took the opportunity when the HD monitors were here to sit over on that side, and even though the size was quite a bit smaller than the projected screen, the projection on the screens up here, because it was HD high definition, I could see much better. And as far as ergonomics, as some of you may know, I used to work in occupational therapy. Sitting back and craning your neck is not something that we would ask our employees to do, and staring up through the lights. So actually, I found it much easier to see, and I could actually see more detail. And if I remember, I listened to, I think, part of that committee, and we might consider, I don't know exactly, but we might have the new legislators sit here and the staff down there. But, or I believe it was said that this wasn't said in the committee, but what was said in the committee was that there could be monitors down there. This is hard for me to see, to look up towards the lights. So I have a computer and I can see when we do have presentations, which it might seem like a lot. It's actually not. We don't have presentations for most of the meeting. So, and we will have a couple other screens available for people who come to look at who come to view our meetings. So I'm looking forward to this. And then price wise, there was a thing about prices too. It's going to be a lot cheaper because these are obsolete in the respect of we need to replace them. So the price to do this, the new monitors, is actually saving us. I don't know if we want to talk about the price. It was quite a lot less expensive for us to do the new technology versus replace the old technology. And we are going to be able, because these screens are going to be removed, we're going to be able to see the architecture better of the room, which I think is a plus.
Thank you, Ann. Greg Muzzy. Okay. Okay. Great. Amanda Champion.
Yeah, I would just add that this isn't sort of an arbitrary, like, hey, let's upgrade. These things are failing. I mean, when Lori has been doing her presentations, you can't see the colors, you can't tell what's going on. And I can look over there and I can see it a little bit over there, but I think if you remember, there'll be a screen on this wall for the public, there'll be a screen on that wall for the public. If anything, there'll be fewer screens because there'll be screens in the middle and it won't be, covering up the beautiful architecture. So I think it's, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but it's not sort of an arbitrary decision. This is technology that's needed so we can provide the service to the public. So thanks.
Thank you. Greg Muzzy.
Yeah, thank you. I did have one. Is that screen that we have above the filing cabinet able to be looped into all of this, or no, it's a separate? Sorry if I missed the
That's
committee
okay. We talked about
conversation.
it in the committee, but that's okay. You can.
Sure. It is on a separate system than the new ones would be on.
Got it.
And the wiring to that screen currently doesn't allow it to integrate with the projectors. It's a question that we have for a service call, so we may be able to use it for other functions, but it will likely still be used for the timer for public comment.
Got it.
For now.
Thank you.
I had one question as far as legislators are issued laptops if they want them. Would it be available to legislators to actually have the meeting at their desk and with their laptop, access to their laptop?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I will say I have mine set up here. Katrina logs in and the presentation is awesome. It's a lot better than that altogether because it's super clear. It's really close. So that might also be an option for some legislators. Any other questions or comments? Okay, let's do a roll call vote, please.
Mike Sigler,
Yes.
Travis Brooks,
Yes.
Randy Brown,
Yes.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Susan Curry,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
No.
Greg Mezzi,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
12 ayes, 1 no, motion passes.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. And this will be moving forward soon and Dominic will be getting to work. So thank you. Okay, the next resolution is Resolution F, a resolution in support of Ukraine, ID 11831, and I would move that.
Can I have a seconder? Seconded by Rich John.
And I mean, Rich, if you want to talk a little bit about it, I think it kind of speaks for itself, but there was some discussion about keeping the flag up in chambers and continuing to support Ukraine, but I don't know if you want to say anything.
Yeah, just the question arose. I originally filed this as a member filed, but the GO committee was gracious enough to take it up as a committee resolution. So thank you. And we had responded when Ukraine was invaded. And one of the steps we took was putting up the Ukrainian flag in our chambers. A question arose as to, well, how long are we keeping it up? And that is a reasonable question to ask. We should be very careful about symbols and how we're presenting them. But it seemed like this is the time to make a clear statement that we do want to continue to support Ukraine. The struggle continues. And putting their flag in our chambers is a reasonable step to continue at this time. So I suggested making a public statement that we're going to do this for another year.
Thank you, Rich. Any other question or comment? Greg Mezzi?
Yeah, I did raise a question about the flag, and again, it's not for a lack of support of Ukraine and standing with the Ukrainian people and the atrocities that are taking place over there. The question I have is, sort of on our dais, the appropriateness of another country's flag. And that's where it came from for me. Would have no objection to a banner that says Tompkins County stands with Ukraine. We continue to support Ukraine. I understand the symbolism of having a flag, but I wonder what steps we as a county are taking to really support and do something and lend ourselves to the issue at hand. Because it is a symbol, it is a gesture, but it would be great if we had real meaning and action behind our symbol. And I personally am not comfortable with the language in the resolution that says so long as the conflict continues. I do see this likely being, unfortunately, a long drawn out conflict just based on the parties in the region in which it's in. It is not for a lack of support and 100% with the Ukrainian people, but just question the appropriateness of another country's flag at the front of our legislature next to our flag. And it is a symbol and would probably support it in other places, but there's a lot of things, a lot of injustices, a lot of atrocities going on across the globe right now. And I hope that we would also take those causes up and stand with those folks that are also experiencing a conflict in their homes. So that's the only reason why I don't support this, but it's not for a statement of not supporting Ukraine. It's just questioning the appropriateness of the county government flying it at, the front of our chambers.
Okay, Rich John, and then Randy Brown.
Yeah, Greg, I agree with you. We need to be careful in establishing our foreign policy. And here we are. But you make a good point in that we have to be careful how we display the flag, and looking at it, it's actually at the same height as the American flag. And I believe the rules on flag display are that you can fly another flag from another country, but it should not be the same height. So we should probably lower it very slightly. But with that said, I still support the resolution. Thanks.
Randy Brown.
Yes, thank you. I have similar concerns as Greg. It's a nasty war and Russia's awful. So you all agree on that. But it's decimated Ukraine. Millions of people have fled that country. Some have come here, which is fine. There are so many places on this earth where wars are happening and people are going to get decimated, and we don't talk about them. And because it's not Russia. So for that reason, I'm going to vote against this. So.
Okay. Mike Lane.
I wasn't going to speak, but I'm very proud of the fact that we support Ukraine and we show a symbol in our legislative chambers that we do. We're spending a whole lot of our treasure in supporting a democracy, which is something that we're supposed to do as a country because we are the most important democracy, and probably the one that the world looks at when things happen. We are standing with our NATO allies and others who aren't even in NATO. And who are the axis here? China, North Korea, Russia, Belarus. I think this is a very nice resolution, very appropriate, Rich, and I want to thank you for bringing it forward.
Any other question or comment? Okay, let's do a roll call vote, please.
Mike Sigler,
Yes.
Travis Brooks,
No.
Randy Brown,
No.
Amanda Champion,
Yes.
Susan Curry,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
Rich John,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Greg Mezzi,
No.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
10 ayes, 3 noes.
Okay, that passes. Are there any other questions for Amanda Champion or comments? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Next, we have Planning, Energy and Environmental Quality Committee and Corman Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We are meeting this coming Monday, August 21st at 10 a.m. here in this chambers. And some of the things on our agenda in one of the highlights is acceptance of grant funding from the Environmental Conservation Municipal Waste Reduction and Recycling Program. And one of the reasons I bring this up is because I always like to highlight the departments that, especially that are going above and beyond, or on the forefront of on the forefront across the state. And our recycling materials management department has gotten an award for nearly $194,000 to help in their recycling efforts. So I really appreciate that. We have just a couple other things about some reusable bags distribution. Actually, it should be pretty quiet meeting. We also, one of the last things we'll be doing is the project approval reviews, the PAR forms, as Mike Lane said that they'll be doing in facilities. So I imagine this is the time of year that they'll be coming through the various committees. I see Lisa nodding her head. So we have a couple of those that we'll see on the agenda. I also wanted to thank my colleague here, Veronica Pillar, and the staff from planning, facilities, sheriff's department, that was there today at the electric vehicle showcase today at the emergency services building on Brown Road. And so we had a showcase of our different vehicles that are either hybrid or fully electric. And there was some that I hadn't seen before. And so it was really cool to be able to see those. And one of the reasons why we did that was to not just showcase to us, but it's just to let the community know what we're doing and if they can learn lessons from what we've done. And we had people from Cayuga Medical Center, Cornell Cooperative Extension, the town of Ithaca, the city of Ithaca. I can't remember if there was any more, Veronica, if you remember any more, but I talked to quite a few people up there. So I wanted to thank our staff for doing that, and had some great discussions with municipalities and organizations who are thinking about delving into electric vehicles and hybrids. So thank you to them. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Ann. Any questions for Ann Corman? Comments? Okay, thank you. Are there any individual member filed resolutions? Okay. And next, if we could vote on the minutes of our previous meeting, August 1st, 2023. Can I have a mover, please? Please, moved by Travis Brooks, seconded by Veronica Pillar. And if we could do a roll call, please. Or actually, are there any comments or questions, changes? Okay, let's do a roll call.
Mike Sigler,
Yes.
Travis Brooks,
Yes.
Randy Brown,
Yes.
Amanda Champion, Susan Curry,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
Rich John.
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Greg Mezzi,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
13 ayes, motion passes.
Thank you. And if I could have a motion to go into executive session in accordance with Article 7, Section 105 of the Public Officers Law. Executive session is only for appropriate discussion of the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation, or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation. And we have two matters that are related to the proposed acquisition, sale, or lease of real property, or their proposed acquisition of securities, or sale or exchange of securities held by such public body, but only when publicity would substantially affect the value thereof. If I could have a motion, please. Greg Mezzi, and a seconder, please. Seconded by Randy Brown. And if we could do a roll call.
Mike Sigler,
Yes.
Travis Brooks,
Yes.
Randy Brown,
Yes.
Amanda Champion, Susan Curry,
Yes.
Deborah Dawson,
Yes.
Rich John.
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Ann Corman,
Yes.
Mike Lane,
Yes.
Greg Mezzi,
Yes.
Veronica Pillar,
Yes.
Shauna Black,
Yes.
13 ayes, motion passes.
Thank you. Why don't we go on a quick break and we will come back in executive session at 7:45. Before we break though, we will not be taking action on anything that happens in executive session. Okay, we are on break till 7:45.
Okay.